Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, y'all. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name. He doesn't need his name up in lights, he just wants to be heard, whether it's the beat of the mic. He feels so unlike everybody else, alone, in spite of the fact that some people still think that they know him. He knows the code, it's not about the salary, it's all.
The Hundred Years' War was a war between England and France that went on and off from 1337 to 1453.
The conflict was the status of the Duchy of Guyenne because England wanted possession, and the kings of England from 1337 claimed the crown of France.
In 1337, King Edward III of England refused to pay homage to King Philip VI of France, so the French kicked all the English wool traders out of Flanders, and in 1339 a fleet of French ships commanded by Hugues Capet raided and plundered the English coast at Southampton. So Edward III declared himself King of England and France, and he went to the coast of France with his own fleet, where he found the French anchored at Sluys.
Because England said they owned part of France, this just upset France and made them mad.
The fight continued for over 100 years, but did have some peace on and off during the time period.
Writes every note and he writes every line, and I've seen him at work when that light goes on in his mind. It's like a design is written in his head every time before he even touches a key or speaks in a rhyme. And knows
Et la chute italien bloque notre chemin. Repoussez-les!
Was laid on France. The population greatly declined from the war and the Black Death during this time.
According to a recent survey, 12% of Americans think Joan of Arc was Noah's wife. Now, if you're one of that 12%, we have some disappointing news for you. Joan of Arc was never on the ark. She was called Joan of Arc because her father's name was Jacques d'Arc. She was a peasant girl born in eastern France, and she believed that she got a personal message from two saints and from Michael the Archangel. Her mission? Throw the English out of France during the 100 Years' War. Now, she told the French prince about her vision, received an army, retook the city of Orleans, and turned the French prince into a king. That's when she wanted to go home, but the king said no, she's got to keep fighting. In the year 1430, she was wounded and captured near the French border. It embarrassed the French king to admit he owed his crown to a peasant girl, so he didn't even ransom her. An English bishop bought Joan and confined her in a dungeon. And she recanted once, but then the bishops returned her to the dungeon again, and finally, the Inquisition convicted her of heresy. And she said she heard the saints' voices again at some point, and soldiers then burned Joan of Arc alive. Now, 25 years after her death, the Pope decided the church had been wrong about Joan the whole time, and in 1920, she was recognized as a saint. But in all of that, she never set foot on Noah's Ark.
Basically, France lost and England won. France was ruined and England prospered.
The war created an almost impossible political situation for both countries, since England thought they controlled some of France, but France thought they controlled themselves. No one knew who was going.
Whoever was supposed to be controlling both countries was clearly undecided. This whole political downfall was one of the main reasons for the war.
The economic status of both countries obviously declined because of fundings for the war. Land was transferred from private land to the ownership of three great monastic orders in England, completely changing the economy.
The French economy was completely ruined from the war, while the English prospered in weapon making, shipbuilding, etc. The French had some money left from Texas and used it to fund a standing army, which increased royal power and revenue.
The biggest impact from the war, especially in England, might be the creation of a much greater sense of patriotism and national identity. The French have benefited from triumphing not just over England, but over the distant French nobles.
The 100-Year War did not as much lead to the end of medieval Europe, but was more of a transition period.
Feudal systems declined, increasing the importance of feudal lords and knights. This completely changed the government at this time because of many places being monarchies.
The 100-Year War also introduced gunpowder and warfare. This completely changed wars from then on because instead of using handmade weapons such as swords plus knives, anyone could just use guns.
The importance of the 100 Years' War was that it developed Western Europe because France emerged more unified. It also decreased feudalism, made new weapons, and boosted the overall nationalism of France and England.